student loan forgiveness plan. We know that for so many families, loan forgiveness has the potential to close the racial wealth gap, to spur economic growth, and to create a foundation for generational wealth. It's crucial that we educate and empower and motivate all the borrowers to take advantage of this opportunity. And so we're doing just that. If you want to support the work of the NAACP to bring impactful change to communities across the country, go to naacp.org to take action. For our phone participants, if you want to ask a question, please dial *3 at any time to get in the question queue. If you're watching on social media, on YouTube or Facebook, you can leave us a question or comment at NAACP or hashtag NAACP. And with that, I'd like to introduce the moderator for tonight's conversation, an award-winning journalist who is often first on the ground breaking news, reporting on the most significant stories, Emmy-nominated, NAACP Image Award recipient, CBS News national correspondent, and anchor of the Sunday edition of the CBS Weekend News. Please welcome Jericka Duncan. Jericka, I turn it over to you.
Alba, thank you so much for having me. Thank you to the panelists. We have an amazing group of people that we will be speaking with about student loan debt forgiveness. As your moderator, I'll be asking a couple of questions, but we're going to try and get to as many questions from you, the viewer, and people that are on the phone. As a journalist, we do have a deadline, so I'm going to try and stay within that framework and make sure we get to as many questions as possible. But before we get started, it is my pleasure to introduce the President and CEO of the NAACP, Derek Johnson.
Thank you, Jericka. And first of all, I want to thank the Secretary for joining this call this evening. But more importantly, I want to thank all of you for joining in. The result of our vote in 2020 has allowed us to work as hard as possible to ensure this administration honored their commitment. And that commitment was to close the racial wealth gap. And for the NAACP and African American community, we recognize in order to do so, it is through two primary vehicles, home ownership and entrepreneurship. But you cannot get to either one of those things unless you deal with this thing called the credit debt ratio. And once we did the analysis, we realized the number one debt for many African Americans who were on a quest to close the racial wealth gap, the barrier was student loan debt. And as a result of that, we led the campaign to ensure that we did as much as possible through our advocacy voice to get this administration to do all they could do to announce student loan debt cancellation. And as a result of our youth activists and many of you on this line, we were successful in that effort. Now, if you were like me, you also depended on the Pell Grant to go through college. And as a result of that, not only are you eligible for cancellation of student loan debt, you're also eligible to double the amount of debt that could be potentially canceled. But in addition to that, the largest employer for African Americans in this nation is public service, whether you're working for federal government, state government, local municipalities, school districts, or for many of us, nonprofit organizations. We are sacrificing our time, our talent to ensure not only democracy works, but our communities have the quality of life that is guaranteed in the Constitution. And so we are here tonight to hear from the Department of Education, from the Secretary and his staff, on how we navigate in this moment, but more importantly, to make sure that we meet a critical deadline of October 31st to fill out the necessary paperwork for the Public Service Student Loan Forgiveness Program, but also that we fill out the necessary paperwork so that we can be qualified. So with that, I want each and every one of you to congratulate yourself, because this would not happen but for the Black vote. So with that, Jericka, I'm going to turn it over as I listen and understand how I personally can navigate this moment, because I am also a student loan borrower. I had to borrow student loans to go through undergrad. I had to borrow student loans to go through law school. So all of us in the African American community, in the Latino community, in the working class white community, we depended on student loans to navigate a system so we can achieve the American promise. So thank you, and I'm going to go on mute and listen and prepare my questions as well.
All right, President Johnson, we thank you for those comments. I want to now bring in the man of the hour, the U.S. Secretary of Education, Miguel Cardona, who will also be able to add context and break down what this is all about and how you, as you're listening, may be eligible for this type of aid.
Hello, NAACP. Thank you to President and CEO Derek Johnson for this wonderful opportunity for everything you're doing. Jericka, it's great to be with you tonight. And a little bit later, folks, you'll be hearing from my colleague, Ashley Harrington. Look, this is an exciting and historic moment. Student debt relief is here, and it's for real. Getting a college degree or certificate should give everyone a leg up on our economy, but for too many people, especially people of color, it's hard to get ahead with student debt holding you back. President Biden's pause on student loan payments was a lifeline for borrowers during the pandemic. But when payments resume in January, we can't go back to the same broken system we had before. It set up too many borrowers for failure. It led nearly 1 million people into default every year. And it perpetuates racial inequities that have been normalized in our country for way too long. Black borrowers are 3 times likelier to default on student loans than white borrowers. And even those borrowers who make their payments see their balances grow. That's unacceptable. President Biden's student debt relief plan is about helping borrowers succeed in repayment and avoid default. We're canceling up to $10,000 in student debt for low and middle income borrowers and up to $20,000 for those who received Pell Grants. That's important because we know that nearly 9 out of 10 Black students receive a Pell Grant. From the moment the president announced the plan, my team has been working tirelessly to make applying for relief as easy as possible. If you're one of the 12 million borrowers who have already applied, then you know our efforts paid off. The application is really short, it's simple, it's mobile and desktop friendly, and it takes less than 5 minutes to apply for this. I saw someone recently on Twitter saying that it's quicker than ordering pizza. I'll be honest with you, if you start applying now, you'll be done way before we get to the questions of this call. Someone else said it's faster than toasting bread. It's pretty fast. This is history in the making. Millions of people, including nearly 42% of all Black borrowers, will be debt-free. Let me repeat that. 42% of Black borrowers will be debt-free. The NAACP helped get us to this moment. Tonight, I ask that you help us make the most of this moment. We cannot let the latest efforts by some Republicans to block our debt relief program stop us from doing what's necessary to reach as many borrowers as possible. These Republicans from states that are suing us had no problem getting forgiveness for their own loans during the pandemic, or getting small business loans that totaled over $58 billion in loan cancellation last year for small businesses in their states. No lawsuits then. They had no problem cutting $2 trillion in tax cuts for big corporations who didn't need the help in 2017. It's only now, though, when we're talking about helping students and helping working families, that they have an issue. So as we wait for things to play out in courts, we must focus on what matters. Reach out to your friends, to your relatives, to your colleagues, your neighbors. Let them know the application is short and simple. Studentaid.gov. Less than 5 minutes. Let them know that a future without student debt is within their reach. Thank you, and let's have a great conversation.
All right, Secretary Cardona, thank you for those remarks. And also, I want to mention someone who will be a part of this panel is Marcus Scribner. Many of you may know him from Blackish and some other film and work that he has been in. There he is right there on the screen. And offering just really a young perspective in terms of what people are dealing with and how this crisis really is affecting folks, because the average person carries about $25,000 in student loan debt. You mentioned, Secretary Cardona, that this program is on hold. It's being sort of headlined with concerns from people all across the country about what does this mean. But I think the important part that you also mentioned is that you still need to apply, because while
Definitely.
this is being litigated, it doesn't mean that the program is scrapped. Can you just reiterate what that
Sure.
means, and when will you likely know when you will be able to continue to administer those funds?
Absolutely. Thanks for that question. Look, what we need to do right now is get as many people to apply and let us fight the fight in the courts. We feel very strongly that not only do we have the authority, but it's the right thing to do to help folks get on their feet. So while there's a stay right now, while appeals are done, we're asking folks to submit their application. I think we have over 22 million people's information already. That's more than half of the people that are eligible for this. So tell me people are not hungry for this. We're going to fight the fight in the courts, but that doesn't mean that we can't take information. And we're feeling very confident because it's the right thing to do. And the president and the entire administration, regardless of how many Republicans are going to sue us to stop this, we're going to keep fighting for you.
So we have a call from, or a comment from Janice from YouTube, and she writes, "What about those who have debt but have not graduated? Do they apply?"
Yes. Short answer is yes. Look, we want to make this as simple as possible. Look, when in doubt, fill it out. If you think you might apply, you might be eligible, fill it out. At this point, we're just trying to cast a wide net. We want to make sure that everyone who's eligible gets it. If you have loans from before July 1st of this year, you're eligible, so apply.
President Johnson mentioned the number of people, Black and Brown in particular, that are in the public service sector. Can you talk about the public service loan forgiveness
Yeah.
program and how that has also been changed to grant more access to people who have debt?
Yeah. We're really proud of that. And before I do that, I want to just say it's great to see Marcus on the call as well. I love his work and I appreciate him being on the call. Look, public service loan forgiveness was intended to provide public servants, as President Johnson said, which we know many Black borrowers are in public service. They're serving their communities. Public service loan forgiveness is intended to provide uh, loan forgiveness, total loan forgiveness, if a public servant, teacher, a nurse, someone, a law enforcement, a veteran, someone that's a 501c3 working for a 501c3, if you're serving your community for 10 years and you're paying your loans, after the 10th year, your loan should be forgiven. I've spoken to educators that have had over $80,000 in debt forgiven. So not only are we doing the broad-based debt relief, $10,000 if you make under $125,000, or $20,000 if you're a Pell recipient. We're also doing the public service loan forgiveness program. And if you think you're eligible for this because you're a public servant and you've been paying your bills for over 10 years, apply for that. You would visit PSLF.gov to apply for that. There's a deadline of Monday for the waiver that we've had to allow more people to apply for it. Let me tell you, Jericka, it was broken. When I got here, it was broken. 98% of the people that applied for this were denied in the last administration. We created a 1-year waiver to allow people who may not have been eligible before to be eligible now. So if you're a public servant and you've been paying your loans, apply for that as well. Apply for both of them. But just know that the public service loan forgiveness waiver ends Monday. So we want to get the word out on that as well.
All right, that's October 31st. Again, that's pslf.gov. Marcus, I want to bring you in because before we got started on this town hall discussion, you said that you know a lot of people around you who carry student loan debt, whether it's family members, friends. Offer your sort of take and perspective on this issue as you are hearing from President Johnson and U.S. Secretary of Education Miguel Cardona.
I mean, first off, I'm very happy to be on this call and getting all of this information about the economic race gap and the student loan forgiveness. That's an insane stat that around 40, I think you said around 40% of people will be debt free after signing up for the aid. Um, I just think it's so unbelievably important because of how crippling student loan debt can be. I've got cousins, my girlfriend, my sister, tons of people I know who have student loan debt, and the way that the world has been working recently, inflation has been working faster than any of our wages are increasing, especially as a Gen Z individual. It's becoming terrifying seeing the prices of houses and cars and things that are necessary for you to live, and then you have to shoulder all this debt coming out of school, something that should help boost you into the workforce and boost you into your everyday life. So make sure you guys go to, I think it's student, what is the link again,
Student,
Secretary?
yeah,
Sorry.
it's studentaid.gov. Studentaid.gov. If folks are listening, look, watch this on your laptop and do it on your phone. You could do it with one hand. It's that simple. Studentaid.gov.
It's so easy, and it's not hurting anybody. It's only helping yourself. Quick to fill out, and I mean, who doesn't want their loans forgiven? I think 40 million people or something like that are shouldering student loan debt currently, which is an insane number. And I mean, the banks are winning; they're continuing to pull in all this extra cash, and it's just a system that's set up to keep you in debt and to keep you paying on these loans forever. So I think something like this is a long time coming, and I appreciate the current administration for putting it into action and trying to decrease the gap.
Thank you so much, Marcus. We do have someone we're going to actually bring into this forum, Yvette from Minnesota.
Hi. Thanks so much
Hello,
for this
Yvette,
opportunity.
you're on.
Hello. Thanks so much for the opportunity to talk to you all.
Thanks for joining us.
I was wondering, can you explain why student loans for people who have been consolidated are rejected from these student forgiveness programs? I've tried, and I've just got a notice from Mahilo 2 days ago telling me I don't qualify.
Thank you for the question, Yvette. What we're focusing on now is trying to get as many people across the finish line as possible. We have about 40 million people that are eligible, and we recognize that there are some that we still have to continue to work with, and you're in one of those categories of folks that we're going to continue to find viable pathways to get some support for you. Right now, we're trying to get as many across the finish line as you could see. We're getting lawsuits, and what we're trying to do is get it through as quickly as possible for as many folks as possible. And while I can't talk specifically about your situation, I want to tell you that we're aware that there's some borrowers right now that are not under this umbrella, but we're not done fighting to make sure that college is accessible, affordable, and that we're helping reduce debt, especially after this pandemic, where people shouldn't be walking out of this pandemic worse off than they were in the beginning. Thank you for that question, Yvette.
Secretary Cardona, thank you, Yvette. Secretary Cardona, I know you're a very busy man, so we've got another question we're going to get to you before you have to leave.
Sure.
Cheryl Myers Johnson says she's not sure if she can also address the federal Parent Plus loans. They are not eligible, she says, for income-based repayments without a consolidation.
So, we recognize there's so many different folks that fall in different categories. And what I could tell you from day one, with Cheryl's situation and many others, we're trying to find as many opportunities to provide debt relief for different borrowers. So for some, it was public service loan forgiveness, right? We fixed that system last year. We put out over $14 billion in loan forgiveness just in that program. There was another program where we had colleges taking advantage of kids, of students like Corrinthian, ITT. We shut that down. $14 billion in debt relief there. We had people who were totally disabled, permanently disabled, right? They were still paying their loans off. They couldn't do it. We took care of that, $9 billion there. So right now, the broad-based debt relief, 40 million people we're trying to support, but we're not going to stop fighting. So that means that, like Cheryl and others who are saying, well, I don't fit in under here. Know that we're not going to stop fighting. We're going to move not only with debt relief, but policies that make it more manageable to handle debt. And at the end of the day, look, we want to not only reduce debt, but make higher education more accessible to more Black and brown families. We have a broken system. We're fixing it. We've done a lot in a year and a half, but we're certainly not done. We're going to keep fighting for you.
Okay. Again, U.S. Secretary Miguel Cardona, thank you so much. U.S. Secretary of Education. There's a lot of secretaries there at the White House.
Yeah. Thank you, Jericka.
We thank you so much for your time, and hopefully for the people that are watching, you've made it clear that while there is some legal issues in a fight, you want people to continue to try and apply for these loans. It's helping a lot of people. Obviously, there's a lot of criticism as well, but we thank you so much for your time and appreciate it.
Happy to be here. I appreciate the work that you're doing at NAACP. Derek, keep up the leadership there. Let's continue to work together. Folks, elections matter. Elections matter. All right, we're going to keep fighting for you. Take care. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you. So it doesn't mean we're ending this right now. We actually have a special guest that we're going to bring in to continue the conversation and make sure that everybody is aware of what's out there and what they need to do in order to find out if they're eligible. We want to bring in Ashley Harrington. She's the senior advisor within the U.S. Department of Education. Good evening, Ashley.
Good evening. So good to be here. It's a hard act to follow, but I love being with the NAACP, so really excited.
Awesome. Just to piggyback off of what Secretary Cardona was saying in reference to some of the federal family education loans, the student loan forgiveness program, it sounds like some people have different loans. They're talking about consolidation. I'm waiting for a couple more questions that will come in. And it can be kind of frustrating. So is there any guidance that you would give folks who they fill out the application and nothing happens? And obviously nothing's going to happen at this moment, but maybe they find out that they're not necessarily eligible, but they feel that they should be, and they've been carrying this debt for 15, 20 years now.
It's a good thing. It's a really good question. So there is a lot going on right now, and this one-time debt relief is transformative. But some of the other programs the Secretary mentioned are equally transformative. What we're doing on public service loan forgiveness, what we're doing on income-driven repayment, that is available still to folks who have these commercial failed loans, folks who have been in repayment for a very long time. We just announced yesterday more improvements to IDR and PSLF that are going to give borrowers that much more credit towards forgiveness. So look at these other options. We're continuing to fight for you in every way that we can, but in the meantime, look at PSLF if you're in public service. Look at income-driven repayment if you've been in repayment for a very long time. There are other options, and we're looking at making the actual payment plans more affordable so that people don't have to have so much of their money going towards the burden of student loan payments every month. So we are looking at this holistically, and there are still options for you, even as we continue to push to provide even more relief for all borrowers.
So it sounds like you have to do the work. You have to at least apply and do your research to find out what's out there and if it works for you. Renee from YouTube writes, can you get loan forgiveness if your loans are in deferment?
So loans can be in deferment for a lot of different reasons, but the repayment status doesn't matter for one-time relief. If you meet the requirements for income, and then you can get the relief. If you got a Pell Grant when you were in school, you'll get up to $20K. So the deferment status doesn't matter. Now, it can impact what counts towards PSLF and sometimes IDR, but what the Secretary said is true. When in doubt, fill it out. Put in those forms, and you'll see how many credits you get. When we implement the IDR adjustment in July of next year, you'll see how close you are to forgiveness, and you can go from there. So there are just so many opportunities. Don't get bogged down in this piece or that piece. Just apply. There is so much relief out there waiting to be had.
I'm sure you've heard this criticism before, Ashley, but if you could speak on the people who just finished paying their loans and they think, I worked hard, I put in the work. It took me 10 years. Where's my relief? Where's my incentive? What do you say to those comments?
So I say, I think it is absolutely awesome that these folks have been able to pay off their loans. I know that many folks had to struggle to do so, and we are so excited that you can. But there are so many folks who are still not able to do that, and we recognize that, and the pandemic only exacerbated that. So the relief we are providing is in recognizing that the student debt burden is real for tens of millions of Americans, and there's something that we can do about it, and we had to do something about it. And so there are all different ways that we support Americans every day, not just on student loan relief. So we don't get bought. The things that we do on other policy programs and other areas beyond just student loans and small business and housing, right? There's so many other ways to get relief. How we support all folks is an investment in our society and an investment in higher education, and the folks who are investing in themselves, we all can benefit from that.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm going to bring in Sharita from Chicago. She has a question. She's going to join us live.
My name is Sharita, and I was actually trying to figure out, okay, like I subbed, but I went to school for education, but I did start paying into my loan, but then I had to stop. So can I still apply for the public service loan?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch all of that.
Sharita, are you still
She was
there?
saying she was saying that she was a substitute teacher and asking if she can qualify for the public service loan, even though she had to stop paying it for a period of time.
Gotcha. So yeah, so a couple things about public service loan forgiveness I want to make sure people know. First, it's about the employer. It's not about the job. We're not going to ask you what you do for that government entity, that 501c3 nonprofit, or that other nonprofit. We're not worried about that. We don't care about your title. We don't care about how much you get paid. We just want to know if you work for a qualifying employer, and if you do, that counts. And however long of that period it was, it can count towards your 120 for PSLF. So for some folks, that might mean they had 20 employers. For some folks, that might mean one employer. Also, it doesn't have to be consecutive. People's lives don't operate in a perfectly straight line. People do different things in different paths. So for some folks, it will take them exactly 10 years to get PSLF. For others, it might take them 14, 15 years. That's okay. That's their journey. So again, just fill it out. Get your credit where you can and go from there.
The student loan repayment moratorium took effect because of the pandemic, and it was extended, and now people have at least until January 1st of 2023. Is that right? To start sort of the payments again?
We will enter repayment after that. Yep, correct.
Yeah. Have there been any conversations perhaps about extending that depending on what happens with the litigation right now and the program being on hold?
So we announced that final pause. We're set to going back into repayment beginning in January. And we have a number of ways that we have set up to make sure that people are able to smoothly transition back into repayment. We're pushing full steam ahead on debt relief, on PSLF, on IDR, but also we are making sure that borrowers know about their options. There are payment plans available that can help you manage your debt. You can self-certify your income right now to get on IDR. So we are trying our best to make sure that borrowers are not put in a worse position when we go back into repayment. We are trying to do this smoothly, making sure borrowers have resources, but payments are going to restart, but there are ways to prepare for that.
I want to bring in
I think
Marcus.
what we're
Oh, there you go, Marcus. You already know. We got to bring Marcus in now. We can't just have him sitting there on the sideline.
appreciate you guys, but yeah, I was just gonna add on, like, they wouldn't be litigating and trying to stop all of these acts from passing if it wasn't gonna be beneficial for us, the people. So I feel like Ashley's been saying, we have to fill out the paperwork and make sure we're going to studentaid.gov and all of these, researching all of these other outlets and possible loan forgiveness programs. And just filling it out is the most important step. It's you're on your way to loan relief and living a better life with less stress and pressure from loans crushing down on you. I know how rough it can be. I mean, I grew up, my mom had student loans. I know a ton of people who have student loans, and it's anxiety inducing. And this is just one way that I think this current administration is doing a good job at trying to address that. I mean, I know January 6th is looming, and it's terrifying and whatnot. Yeah, try to fill out as many applications as you can for loan forgiveness.
Marcus, do you feel like your generation perhaps is looking at education and its importance differently? And I feel like people understand. So sorry about that. I think I just had an interruption to FaceTime. But this is live TV, people. But
yeah, this is real life.
I mean, there was sort of a period of time where it was education by any means, and you do go into debt and you just pay it off over a long period of time. I have a lot of friends too that are still carrying debt, and we've been out of school for almost 20 years. But is your generation and what you're hearing, are people feeling like maybe it's not worth it, or taking a different option, or finding creative ways to not necessarily walk away with thousands and thousands of dollars in debt?
Yeah, I think I definitely am hearing a lot more of that alternate route when it comes to going to college, because I mean, it is terrifying having to shoulder $250,000 just to get an education and to enter into the workforce. And then you have to buy a house. And I live in Los Angeles. It's like impossible to buy a house. It's terrifying as somebody from Gen Z. Like, you don't want to go to college. You don't want to have to come out the other end with all of these sorts of loans. Especially, when I was looking at going to school, and I don't recommend this route for everybody, I was thinking about it from the perspective of, okay, I'm coming out of school. I've got to pay $250,000 to go to school. I'm having this 4-year experience when I could just jump into the workplace right away. So I think a lot of people really are looking at alternate routes when it comes to education and also career path. I do not recommend that route for a lot of people. I was in a very fortunate situation. I think going to school is obviously the most solid and foolproof way to secure yourself a job and a career and a future. But yeah, I mean, wages are not matching what the current rate of inflation is right now. And then you add student loan debt on top of that, and you add the race gap when it comes to wealth, or the sex gap. And it's just like, what are you to do? It just feels very overwhelming. So I think a lot of people are looking to alternate routes. But I hope that this loan forgiveness program will help to encourage people to go to school, and to try to follow like a safer route.
Absolutely. We're going to go to Lynn now from Florida. Lynn, you're on.
Yes. I'm wondering if there's been any progress. I heard that Elizabeth Warren was working on getting relief for those people with private student loans. I wonder if there's been anything done on that.
Ashley?
So that goes back to, we continue to fight and push for relief for everyone. We're rolling full steam ahead. 40 million Americans can benefit from one-time debt relief. Folks who still have those privately held student loans, the commercially held FFEL loans, can apply for PSLF and IDR and get access to those pieces. But for folks who have purely private student loans, fortunately, we are working on the federal student loan issue. We know there is much more to do on student loans, beyond just the federal portfolio, and we are absolutely continue to work with our partners in Congress and across the board to make sure we're supporting borrowers across the country.
We have another caller, Beverly from Chicago.
Hi, this is Beverly, and I thank you for taking my question tonight. It's about the public service loan relief. Do parent plus loan qualify? And also one more, like the second part is, do you have to have made payments on that loan? Because my loan has been deferred, but it was only coming due in January anyway. So that's what I wanted to know.
It's a good question. So first, Parent Plus loans are eligible for PSLF. They have different rules for income-driven repayment, so that's where the confusion lies. So I encourage you to go to studentaid.gov, and there's some more detailed information there. In terms of your loans are in deferred, it sounds like maybe you're still in that in-school deferment status, or if you have Parent Plus loans, the student was still in school. So if the loans haven't become due yet, if they're still on in-school status, then you're not, that time wouldn't count towards PSLF anyway. So once you enter repayment, you can get on track for PSLF going forward.
Okay. I think we have another question coming in. Stand by. But in the meantime, while we wait, I wanted to bring in President Johnson, if he's still on the line, still listening. President Johnson, are you still there? Okay. Well,
we'll get him back.
Pose this question to you. At the very beginning of this conversation, he talked about the efforts to really help with the credit debt ratio. With your background in advocacy, I saw that you're the senior policy counsel for the Center of Responsible Lending prior to taking on this position within the Department of Education. Why is that so important? Because again, people will look at this program and think, it's not fair. And then they hear, oh, it's only helping this certain group of people. When in reality, while it might help 42% of Black and Brown people, there's another 58% of people that it's helping that are not. Why is the credit debt ratio so important? And just talk about how this isn't specifically about necessarily helping one group. Obviously, it's helping people of color, people who are maybe low income more than others. But how does that help the sort of overall economy when you have this type of debt that is relieved so that people can invest, buy homes, et cetera?
Yeah, I love that question. And I think you touched on so much of it, right? So there's the 44 million people who have student loans. Then there's their families, there's their communities, and there's our economy. And everybody is impacted by a $1.7 trillion debt crisis, not just the people who directly have it on their books. Whole families and communities are being held back. And so absolutely, these policies disproportionately help people of color because people of color disproportionately have to borrow to go to school. That's the way it is. We know about the racial wealth gap. We know about the racial income gap in this country. We know how we got here. We know how people are having to pay for school. And so that is how this works. But when people are able to, when we see money going back into people's pockets, when people are able to not have to worry about student loans, we know that they will put it back into the economy. They will absolutely save for retirement. They will absolutely buy houses. They will absolutely be able to start small businesses. We see all the time how student loans intersect with other forms of credit. We see it in the mortgages you're able to have access to, the small business loans you're able to have access to. We saw it in so many situations. And so I think all of these systems are connected, and all of us can benefit from a society that has people that are not just well educated, but not burdened by debt, and who can actually do something with the education that they took on and give back to their society and community.
I think President Johnson is back on. We were just speaking about at the top of this town hall discussion. You talked about the efforts to get to this point and the importance of looking at that credit debt ratio.
Yeah, so one of the reasons why this became important for the NAACP, we quickly recognized that the conversation about the racial wealth gap was embedded in people's understanding around creditworthiness. And creditworthiness has everything to do with whether or not you have more debt than to your income. And over the last 20 plus years, we've seen an increase of first and second generation college goers seeking to claim a stake in this economy by going to college. This was happening during the exact same time many states or publicly funded institutions began to raise tuition as their effort while they were cutting tax to the super rich. And private schools, keeping up with inflation, also increased tuition, and Pell Grant programs were stagnant. And so we have a whole generation of students across communities who are saddled with student loan debt, And student loan debt is a super debt. You cannot discharge it in bankruptcy. It remains with you for the rest of your life. And if you hold that debt for more than 10 years, you begin to be upside down, i.e., you're paying more in interest payment than you actually are paying in principal, resulting in individuals who are unable to get out of that debt for their lifetime.
And how much of this do you think almost prompts people to at least start paying off that debt again? Because some folks, I'm sure, have just thought, yeah, it's there and it's going to be there because I already have my degree. So I'm probably not going to pay on it. How much of what you're talking about gets people motivated to sort of get back on a payment plan?
Well, what happens now because of this administration, people can begin to see a pathway to satisfy the debt and a pathway to see their opportunity to really appreciate their hard work throughout their lifetime. Think about teachers. An education degree in many states are undervalued. Many teachers had to take out student loan debt, but they're not paid a salary to satisfy the debt on top of all the other responsibilities of being parents, of navigating a lifestyle which would allow them to have some level of comfort. And many teachers and police officers simply gave up. Now, with this program, people could begin to see a pathway to satisfy their obligations as they look at ways to retire with a level of comfort. Far too many individuals are retiring and still have this debt hanging over their head.
Thank you for that. We've got a few more questions we're going to try and get in before we wrap up. Starting with Alice in Pennsylvania.
Good evening. Hello.
Hi, Alice. Good evening.
Good evening. My question is this. I worked for city government for 26 years. I obtained my MSW while I worked in city government. But my master's degree loan is held by a private university. Would I qualify for the public service loan forgiveness program?
That's a good question. So it sounds like you may still have Perkins loans. These are loans that were originated by institutions of higher education, but guaranteed by us. They also still could be a school loan program. So if they are those Perkins loans, if you're able to log into studentaid.gov, log into your account and see those loans there and they say Perkins, yeah, you're able to consolidate those right now. Do it by month, do it before Monday, get the PSLF waiver. That's one of the huge benefits is that you don't have to have direct loans right now. This is for folks like you. If you have those Perkins loans that are federally guaranteed, look into that and absolutely you can qualify.
All right, Alice, thank you for your question. Let's go to Nellie in Detroit.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. My other question, most of them have been asked, but I was just trying to find out. I have an adult son who did not finish school, and I ended up taking out a Parent Plus loan. So in the process, he went into default. In order for me to do the loan forgiveness, I had to consolidate. Is he eligible for this debt relief, or does it still fall on me? He's 42.
So I'm not quite clear, but basically debt relief is available per borrower, and Parent Plus loans are eligible, as are the student loans. If they are still his loans, it would be based on his income and whether he got a Pell Grant. If they are your Parent Plus loans, it will be based on your income and whether you got a Pell Grant when you were in school. So check out studentaid.gov/debt relief for more information. Go to studentaid.gov, see what type of loans you have. But in general, that's how to think about it.
Looks like we have another question and Nellie, thank you for your question as well. Eugenia in New York, you're on.
Hi, how are you?
Hello.
Thank you. And I'm very honored to, really be talking to you all. So you all answered most of my questions. Wait, I only had like real quick ones, and the one about, because I've seen negative talk about the student relief, like why should these people get this? But I wanted to know, do you find that a lot of the colleges are like making changes to their fees? Because like my school, they lowered the fees, and they took out application fees. And then also, I wanted to know the different websites that you talked about. Is it going to be on the NAACP website?
So I'm sure that they're going to be on the website, and they're probably already there because we've worked with NAACP quite a bit, so we can make sure that that is shared more visibly with everyone here. On the college affordability piece, we continue to push that in many ways. We've looked at accountability for predatory schools that overcharge folks and underdeliver. We look at supporting institutions that will serve students of color, low-income students, students that are most likely to have to borrow. We're looking at all of that. We're proud to see that schools like HBCUs are using COVID relief funds to help give money back to students and forgive debts. There's so many different ways that schools in different areas are looking at this, and we want to continue to push them to do more. We want to work with states to get more money back. It's a state and a federal responsibility to fully fund higher education. There's a lot more we have to do on college affordability, and that's working with all of the stakeholders to get there.
And to that point, thank you for that call, Eugenia. To that point, when you look at the connection with federal and state, we have a question from Will who says, are there any pieces of legislation that would complement the executive orders from President Biden's student loan debt plan so that we may reach out to our legislators?
I have no. I focus on federal student loans. That's what I got. I'm sorry. Okay. But there could be. I know a lot of states are active. There are states that are doing more to protect student borrowers with borrower bill of rights. So there's a lot going on at the state level. Unfortunately, I just can't right now.
No, I understand. It's overwhelming. And also, when you look at the amount of debt that you're talking about, I think another question people might have is where is this money coming from and how much debt are we talking about potentially eliminating?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the other question is, sorry.
No, go ahead, Ashley.
Okay.
I was about to chime in. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead, President Johnson.
So when you consider the student loan debt obligation, it is less than the total amount that was forgiven for the PPP loan program. What this administration has done as a result of our vote is prioritize people over corporate interests. In fact, if you look at the amount of money that has been forgiven or given to corporations over the last 3 years, it more than doubled the amount of money that would relieve the pressure for many student loan borrowers. And so as we hear news commentators talk about things about the amount of debt or unfairness, don't get discouraged. The community across the country, and I'm saying communities plural, whether you are first generation college goers, African Americans, Latinos, whites, we deserve this because in order for our economy to continue to grow, it must grow on the back of individual citizens. And if the promise of America is to ever be realized, then we should not be trapped in a cycle of debt that we cannot get out of. Any economy that's based on individuals being in debt is a flawed economy. And if we can provide support for corporations, surely we can make sure that individuals who make our economy go, individuals who make sure our democracy works, individuals who were the frontline workers during a pandemic should also be provided the necessary support to realize the American dream.
Well said. Got another question from Virginia. Danya, are you there?
I am.
Hi.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we
Good
can
evening,
hear you.
everybody. I'm Danya from Northern Virginia. I have two questions. In fact, my first is whether or not applying for the loan for the forgiveness affects the current forbearance deferment.
It sounds like there's a little bit of background noise. If you could just repeat your question one more time.
Yes, does applying for the program affect a current forbearance that's in deferment?
So no, the
Understand?
one-time debt relief is not about the status of your loans. It's just about whether you meet the income criteria and whether you got a Pell Grant or not. So that's what you should focus on. It doesn't impact the status of your loans, but it will help you when you do re-enter repayment. If your loan's going to be re-amortized, your payment could change, and so it'll help you going forward, but it doesn't change the status of your loans. And remember, the loans that are eligible for debt relief are ones that are on the payment pause right now. So if you're talking about the COVID-19 forbearance, that's going on to the end of December anyway.
Okay, Danya, you said you had one more question? Okay, I'm not sure if she's still there. Looks like we're going to wrap it up here. She is no longer on the line, but just to reiterate those important websites, it's pslf.gov. Again, that's pslf.gov and studentaid.gov, studentaid.gov. So good luck to all of you, and thank you for joining us. I'm going to turn it over, closing remarks, to Marcus, and then Ashley, then President Johnson, and then myself, and then we're gonna say peace. But Marcus, you can kick us off.
Thank you guys so much for turning out and watching us discuss student loan forgiveness. Thank you, everybody. Ashley, President Johnson, for educating me on the topic. I was very excited to sit here and learn and soak up as much as I could. And thank you for being an excellent moderator as well. And everybody, make sure you sign up for student loan forgiveness. Make sure to go to studentaid.gov and investigate all your options. I know that student loan debt can be crippling, and all forms of debt can be crippling. So make sure to get it off your back. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. We'll see you on Grownish, and I'll be watching the reruns of Blackish, and good luck to you.
Appreciate it. Great talking, everyone.
Ashley?
Yeah, just thank you so much for having us, for putting this together. Thank you to NAACP. Thank you to Marcus. Thank you to you for being such a great moderator. Thank you, President Johnson. Always great to be, following up to Secretary Cardona. So I just think our biggest message is apply for this relief. This administration has prioritized student loan borrowers. It's prioritized racial equity. It's prioritized policies that will help low and middle income people and change their lives. These are once in a generation policies, once in a lifetime policies that can absolutely help people change their life and change the trajectory of where they're going and their family. So take advantage of these policies. Don't leave money on the table. There's a PSLF deadline on Monday, October 31st. Go to pslf.gov, learn about that, see if you can take advantage. Also apply for debt relief. Look at all of the things that we are doing. There is so much out there to help you for your student loans. It is not the same student landscape it was prior to this administration. You have the opportunity now to actually see a light at the end of the student loan tunnel, and we want you to take advantage of it. Thanks.
Thank you. President Johnson.
So first of all, I want to thank the Secretary, Ashley, and to you, Jericka, for joining us this evening. The result of this conversation is directly related to everyone on this line and our neighbors for turning out to vote in 2020. Politics equate policy. Policy that really improve the quality of life for individuals is what we are in pursuit of. And what we have witnessed with this administration is an opportunity for individuals, for families, for generations to get out of the cycle of debt. It is our opportunity, if we exercise our ability to apply for this opportunity now, to truly change the trajectory of our family's legacy. But that only started because you turned out to vote. This election cycle in 2 weeks is as important as any other election cycle But just understand the reward of the 2020 election. We're only having this conversation because you turned out. Student loan debt crisis is something that needed to be addressed. This administration did it because of you. So thank all of you for turning out to vote. Let's make sure we apply before the deadline as we prepare to turn out to vote and get our neighbors to vote in 2 weeks for the midterm elections. Thank you all. Have a great night.
Thank you. Thank you, President Johnson. Thank you to Ashley, to Secretary Cardona, obviously Marcus, and a special thank you to Abba Blankson. She's the woman behind the scenes that reached out to me, asked me to be a part of this forum to help people better understand their options. So thank you so much for having me, and I'm going to turn it over to Abba.
Thank you so much, Jericka, and thank you to all of the panelists. We still have a lot of questions. We're going to be posting responses on our website, naacp.org. So I encourage all folks to visit the NAACP website, visit studentaid.gov to continue to apply. So thank you, everyone, for joining us, and have a great, great, great evening. And remember,